Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Movie Night spoiler review. It's been a while since we've done one of these. It is, of course, me, Dalton, along with the amazing Nicholas Iricchio. Nick, how are you, my friend?
I am brave. How about you?
I'm in a new world, if I must say so myself. But yes, thanks for hopping on and doing this, buddy. I thought it'd be a
Of
fun
course.
thing to kind of go through Captain America Brave New World, which you can find our review on the channel, and do a full spoiler review. So let that be your warning. If you have not seen Captain America Brave New World, please go watch it and then come back and watch this review. You don't want anything to be spoiled for anybody. This is probably going to post sometime on Sunday to give some people a chance to see the movie. I hate when Friday night people start posting their spoiler review stuff because it's like you're just arming trolls to go through and start spoiling it in comments. Like it's especially like Brave New World, not so much, but like people were doing that at like the height of Endgame, and it's like you're an asshole. Like people who are doing that.
Like we
But
we've been building up to this, Brave New World. I let it slip. Captain America dies. What are we gonna do?
what do I? Oh well.
Uh,
Yes, perfect. But let's. I don't have any sort of planned structure for this, Nicholas. I was just gonna pick a moment in the movie and go, and then just kind of be scatterbrained about the whole thing. Honestly. So the
All
moment
right.
the moment I want to start with is let's start at the very very end of the movie. Let's start with the post credit scene.
Okay.
Uh, it's not a great one. It, it's
It is
it's
not.
it's kind of just a oh, more stuff coming. Upon thinking about it, I honestly feel that post credit scene was for people who just have not been catching up. Because I think this is just a theory of mine. I have no evidence to back this up.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe the brass at Marvel were like, Captain America is a certain title where a lot of people who wouldn't go watch like Deadpool, Wolverine, Agatha, the Marvels, even Guardians, like they'd still watch Captain America, and they probably don't even know what the fuck is going on. Like they probably have no clue that we're even in the
Yeah.
multiverse thing.
They're like, oh, is Marvel gonna do something multiversal?
Yeah,
And
like
it's
they have a
like, where you been?
yeah. I mean,
Well, I
I th-
think I think it was more. I feel like it was reshoots.
I mean, yeah, it felt that way.
It felt very Kang to me, like that they had specifically name dropped Kang. He says the others are coming. I think that's supposed to be the Council of Kangs.
Hmm.
And I think they probably reshot or ADR'd or something because one, they were not on set together. You could tell
Nope,
that for sure.
nope.
And it looks like it was made last week. Um, but I think they made it the more general, right? Incursions, multiverse, setting up Secret Wars, and Doom. I was shocked they didn't just name drop Doom at that point if you're reshooting it.
Yeah,
It would so it just felt like a unnecessary post-credit scene, and honestly, like, if you don't have anything to do for the post-credit scene, don't do it. And I think that's the greater issue with these post-credit scenes that Marvel's doing. They used to just be fun, but now they're so much more focused on setup, and to me, I don't think that they should be required viewing.
right, right.
Make it
No, that
some
makes
substance,
sense.
like Ant-Man getting blipped in a post-credit scene, or being put into the quantum realm,
Hmm.
and then the like Hank and them being blipped. That should never have been a post-credit scene. That's crazy to me.
See, I'll disagree there, just
Uh-huh.
because I understand it not being required viewing, but
Yeah.
I also think that what we've gotten in the run of recent post credit scenes, Variety recently did an article of here are 16 post credit scenes that have not been followed up on, and it's since Endgame, and so I would take a post credit scene like this over something that I know is not going to get followed up on anytime soon,
Yeah,
and
but there's also the fun ones, like the Captain America one at the end of Homecoming when he's
right.
just like the PSAs. I don't mind those gags. It does kind of it is sort of, you don't get that nice payoff of like waiting through the credits and it's a joke. Sometimes those can be hit or miss. But I think that I would take something like this or the Ant-Man one over. When are we ever seeing Harry Styles again? When are we ever seeing
Right.
Hercules again? When are we ever seeing Clea,
Yeah.
Charlize
When
Theron
when
again?
are we getting the power broker again?
I know it took 20 years to get the leader.
Yeah, exactly. But I think where it bothers me is if you're going to go through the trouble of reshooting it, then set up what's coming next. Like, and not in vague, like, yeah, they did, but it was still vague. Like, I almost feel like that was the same dialogue that they had before and they just shot it again. It's like, you could have done something more. And, like, honestly, with the amount of Ant-Man references that we got in this movie,
Mhm.
maybe there was something Kang related going on with the leader where he knew, because something
But
that,
even then, throughout the movie, he name drops that Falcon wants to meet Ant-Man. Just literally
yeah,
have that, like, do, like, the Shazam Superman scene where he just screams and he cuts. Do that with Ant-Man,
yeah,
it'd be funny.
yeah, but also, and this is just a theory dovetailing into it. I saw a really interesting theory on a new Rockstars video where in Ant-Man and the Wasp, Walton Goggins is working for the buyer, and we never find out who that buyer is. And in this movie, the leader is referred to as the buyer. So someone was like, yo, were they long-term setting up that like that buyer was also the leader who was trying to get Pym particles to go into the quantum realm to hide from Kang? Like, is that what was going on with the leader? Like he figured out about Kang and was like long-term trying to make that happen? I think it's coincidence that they were both called buyer, but I thought it was interesting. I also think
Marvel doesn't do connectivity like that anymore. Come on.
No, and even when they did before, it was kind of coincidental. Like people still forget that like the ether was never going to be a fucking Infinity Stone. Okay, like that was never going to be an Infinity Stone ever. And then they were like, "We're missing a stone. Oh fuck, let's use the ether," and it worked out.
Like the ether exists. It's more of a sludge than a stone. But I mean, I think one, the post-credit scene is just dumb. Him saying, "I did the math." He said, "The math checks out. You're gonna die." Like literally, just don't even name drop. Like you can name drop Doom, but like do like there's like a 93% certainty you'll be facing Doom or something. I'm not a screenwriter, but like just name drop the Doom line. Don't even call it Doctor Doom or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I think it could have been done better. Yes, and I think if you were gonna go with the joke one. What I would have liked to have seen is like, since him and President Ross are at the raft, like you could set it up to where their cells aren't that far away from each other, and maybe like he's flicking like paper footballs at the leader or something just to piss him off, and like I don't know, like that'd be funny. But that was the post credit scene of it all. Other spoilers in the movie that I wanted to dive into is the fight with Red Hulk.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for the most part, the fight was handled really well. Because they did a good job of showing Sam being able to fight him with his suit and his vibranium and, the upgrades to his suit and everything that he had. But at the same time, it's not like he was beating Hulk's ass. At one point, the Hulk was going to fucking murder him. Like, Red Hulk was going to murder him. I don't love that it got resolved by him talking him down. I think it would have been a lot more effective if you want to show how smart Sam Wilson is that he figures out where Betty is and takes the fight to wherever she is, and she's the one that like gets him to calm down. Mm-hmm. I feel like that could have worked out a little bit better, maybe. But at the same time, I thought for the most part the fight was really well done. I love the really cheesy comic book shot of the Red Hawk on top of the White House as it's being destroyed. Big fan of seeing that.
Yeah, personally. I don't want to rewrite the movie. I do like the idea of maybe the fight where Betty is, and I think there's a good shot of them taking that walk, and like that's how it calms him down, But like they do set up, him Ross visiting his wife's grave, and they have that quote of like looking to the sunshine or something, and I thought that was where they were gonna go with it, where like they're clear, like Red Hulk looks up at the sun, and like maybe they even do an Icarus situation. Maybe he just sacrifices himself and just leap,
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that Ross, to me personally, had the best story arc.
I agree.
In the film, I think that was the strongest element, and even then, it wasn't anything substantial. But I also think I'll lean into the positives because we were pretty negative on the post credit scene.
Yeah.
I loved Ross's arc, and speaking with your saying the fighting, I love the distinction between Sam Wilson's fighting style and Steve Rogers' fighting style.
100%. Yes.
I think that's very important. I think that the reason why some of the action, and we even said like this is some of the best action in the MCU more recently, aside from like the obvious like Shang-Chi and everything, was because they had to get creative. He is just a guy. He's got the wings. He has the shield, he does have all these capabilities and toys, but like if you watch the fight with him and Giancarlo Esposito, he doesn't have anything, and he has to get creative. He's getting stabbed, he's stabbing, and I think it allowed them a lot more opportunities to be a lot more brutal, because Captain America punches and you're knocked out.
Yeah,
and Sam doesn't have that capability.
And I said it the second time we watched the movie. I said it then, I'm going to say it again. We in cinema do not get enough of no concern for your own safety drop kicks anymore. And man, that fucking drop kick he hit Sidewinder with, I felt it in my chest. I was like, oh, that fucking hurt. And when I saw him land on the car, I'm like, that hurt his hip. That would have probably broken my hip. And he didn't care. He was like, I'm going to kick this man. I'm going to kick him really hard. And we need to see more of that in cinema, I'm telling you.
I think that's a good pivot, too, into Sidewinder as part of the reshoots. You know, he was part of the reshoots on the film. I thought they did a good job incorporating it.
For the most part.
I'll speak to some positives. Adding Giancarlo Esposito to your movie, always a good idea.
Yep.
He should be in everything. He's going to crush it. If you need a character in your reshoots, yep, I would love to see him have a much larger role in the MCU because I think he's a phenomenal actor. But to buff up kind of a nothing part, I think that was a smart casting choice. And I like the idea of a recurring villain. I like that he, pops up like 2-3 times throughout the movie. You know, you don't see that a lot. It's usually there's one big movie. We don't really do side goons anymore, or it's always just a different no-name day player henchman, right? So I like that he just kept popping up as an inconvenience. I am curious more about the greater story because he was a lot of an exposition dump.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I am curious what that movie looked like before his addition, because I know that Seth Rollins and Rose Salazar, they were supposed to be 2 members of the Serpent Society, and he was obviously the head. Probably teasing him maybe for a future thing. I don't know.
Yeah,
was that exposition just on them?
I imagine he replaced Rose Salazar. I don't know that. I imagine that. I don't know if the exposition was any different. I think a lot of the exposition had to do with just the changes to the story from the reshoots. And they were like, all right, we cut out that sequence, so we need this explanation said. Oh, we have Giancarlo Esposito available. Let's use it in this sequence, like when they're at the jail and he's talking to them. Although I will say, even though it's an added reshoot, I thought him and Mackie's chemistry was great. Like, especially in that last sequence when he's like, what's the prison he wants to go to in exchange for the deal? It starts with an A.
I don't remember. I'm sorry.
Let's just call it Allentown for the sake of it. But he's like, if you break out of Allentown, I'll know. And then he's like, when I break out of Allentown, I will kill you. Like, I just felt like that was like a good exchange.
It was like bringing back, like, I liked when, what was it, Batrac?
Yeah, and Falcon and Winter Soldier.
And then the Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like, I do like that element of things. So I do hope, hopefully, that, we see him again. But again, when does that happen? When is Captain America 5,
Yeah. And I almost feel like this movie is a bit reminiscent of, and don't come at me in the comments just yet, let me do my whole thought here. It's a bit reminiscent of the season 2 of Daredevil, in that this could have been 2 movies of Isaiah Bradley and the leader and Sidewinder and the president. And they kind of just like did one big story instead. Kind of like Daredevil could have been like one season could have been Punisher, one could have been Elektra, but they did both. And I feel like an issue the movie had is as a story got interesting, it would go to the other one and before trying to tie them all together. And I agree with you that Ross does have the most character in the movie, which I find a little bit interesting because, like, for it being Sam Wilson's first Captain America movie, and, like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to, like you said, I'm not trying to rewrite the movie, but, and yeah, we did get a lot more of him and his backstory and family in The Falcon and Winter Soldier. No mention of them. No mention of Elijah Bradley. And if you're going to make a story with Sam Wilson as Captain America, I was very shocked we didn't get some sort of flashback to either him during the war he fought in or as a child, like just something to like really put the audience back into his perspective as Captain America. But instead we got those scenes with Ross, a character that's been around longer than Sam has, which I found to be an interesting choice. But at the same time, I thought that Anthony Mackie did have to carry a lot of weight of the movie's mistakes on his shoulders, and I think he did a really good job at doing that. Like when he's watching, another big spoiler in the movie, when he's watching Joaquin Torres almost die on the table, and he gives that speech of like, man, like Steve made a mistake when he's talking to Bucky when Bucky shows up. I thought that was a really good scene for the most part. And I think that, by the way, when I saw it at a critics screening, and it got no reaction. That wasn't surprising. I was really hoping on opening night that it would get a reaction from the crowd, and I'm so glad it did. It did get a good reaction. But, Bucky coming in and, talking to him and that speech, mostly just from the Anthony Mackie side. Again, he's carrying a lot of this movie on his shoulders, and I think he did the best he could do. Like, I don't think any issues I have with the movie have zero to do with Anthony Mackie and his performance,
Mm-hmm. No, I think I'll touch on a few points. One, I loved the Bucky appearance, right? Those characters are very tied together, and I love
Mm-hmm.
the buddy dynamic. To me, the issue with that scene is sort of the joke tag on at the end. I think you and I disagreed on it,
Yeah.
but to me, that scene was I wanted those emotional moments in the movie. I think that's where the heart of like what a Captain America movie is, right? Is these
Mm-hmm.
emotional dynamics between the characters, and that was the first time, really, at this point, that we were getting a character beat and not a plot or story beat, because
Mm-hmm.
this movie is all plot.
Pretty
And
much.
I was like, yes, this is great. The whole Bucky idea of like Steve gave people someone to be inspired by, you're giving them someone to aspire to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that spoke wonderfully to the differentiation between the two Captain Americas. But then the joke at the end, while it was a funny joke of the screenwriters, right? Because you have to set up Bucky being a congressman, whatever. It just to me took me out of that scene, and I was like, that I wanted more of this, because another scene that really works is when Ross is telling him, like, I almost died because I was
Yeah.
dying.
Yeah.
That's why I did what I did.
That's a
No
great scene.
jokes, and that's one of the best scenes of the movie. And I think that Bucky scene would have also had that moment, because this is, like I said, it's a plot movie, and there's characters in it like Ruth Basarova.
Betsara. Mm-hmm.
Basarov. You know, we barely get any background on her. Now I know there was controversy outside, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that affected. Like, I don't think they cut elements of her out of the movie. We
That we
really
know
just get
about.
like that we know about, right? But it really was just like, she's a former Black Widow. She's the head of security. On to the next one. That could have been
Mm-hmm.
any character from Black Widow. It could have been Yelena. It could have been any XYZ person. We hear mentioned that Sam has a friend working at the White House. We're introduced to that character. I can't tell you her name,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't get a formal introduction. We're just assuming, because he's talking to her, that that's his friend at the White House,
Yeah.
and that Ross trusts her with his life, and they're very close in that dynamic. But it's like, we weren't spending time to get these characters, so when they're put in these precarious situations, I'm not feeling for them in that regard. And even Ross took that little bit of a hurdle, because you are processing it is a different actor, and I think that does have something to play with that. But like, everything with Isaiah worked for me, but I've also spent 6+ hours with him on Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, like Sam, I just was like, yes, I know Sam, he's Falcon and now Captain America. I think that knowing who he is as a person, we just didn't get that much. I think the movie could have benefited from more character driven moments and not story driven.
1,000%. I think 1,000%. And the only place I'll disagree with you on the Bucky thing, though, is I thought the first part of Bucky's speech was genuine. And then it goes to a point where he's talking, and I'm like, does Bucky know that we're watching? Like, he's almost delivering that speech as if he knows, like, oh, we need to make sure the audience is aware, that the filmmakers are aware that the Captain Americas are different. So it felt off. So that's why when Mackie says, like, did your speechwriters help you with that? I thought it was like a self-aware joke that worked for me. But I see what you're saying, though, and I fully agree. This movie could have benefited from slowing down, having a lot of character-driven moments. Like, and I'm going to go on a mini rant here, because I've argued since 2016, Nicholas, I have argued that Civil War is the best film they've ever made. I still think that. I still think that Captain America Civil War is the best film the MCU's ever made. And it's partially because, one, it moves at the same pace as Brave New World does, but it still has character-driven moments. It still has moments of emotion. You still learn new things about the characters. You still connect with all of them. It's also what some consider to be a mini Avengers movie, while at the same time balancing the main story of Steve and Bucky's relationship and it being at the center and core of it being a Captain America movie. And it introduces Black Panther and Spider-Man, and it doesn't feel overstuffed. It feels perfectly paced and perfectly balanced and wonderful. And like, where did that magic go is kind of the question here. And I'm not saying like the people making this film weren't capable. I just think that for whatever reason, because we know that they did test screenings and that's why they did reshoots, for whatever reason, and a lot of this has to do with this movie is one of the last movies affected by the Chapek regime where Kevin Feige didn't have a lot of power, hence probably wanting to do a lot of reshoots. But at the same time, what it's reflective of is for some reason Marvel has cold feet now when it comes to their projects, instead of having that confidence that they used to have. Or even if a project wasn't the best, like Iron Man 2, Incredible Hulk, even though I like Incredible Hulk more than most people, and Captain Marvel, like even those films are kind of considered like, oh, the lesser of the bunch, you could still tell like it was made with the confidence of that same brass, that same brand. And I think the last film we got like that was Eternals. And when Eternals was not received well, they reacted in a way that was a bit reactionary to kind of making sure that each film could be a little bit different, a little bit changed up. And I think that hurt it for the worse. And that I like Eternals more than most people. I'll admit that. But I think even if you don't like it, you can't deny that it's singular in what it was doing. And it doesn't feel like it was corporately stitched together, kind of like this film does. Now, does this film feel corporately stitched together? Yes. But I think it's one of the better versions of a corporately stitched together movie. Like we've seen this go horrifically wrong on like the Sony side. Jesus Christ.
The DC side.
And the DC side too. Like this feels like a more competently corporately stitched together, but still corporately stitched together nonetheless. It
felt like the reshoots were strategic.
Yes, it felt like the reshoots were fixing a problem.
Yes, we were trying to get it from here to here, knowing it's not going to get to here.
Yes, and the issue is they used to make movies with full confidence that they would be here. And that's kind of and that's why I try to, I hold these movies to a really high standard. And what I have to give this movie, and again, overall, I like this movie. I kind of put it on the same wavelength as like an Iron Man 2-ish. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't hate Iron Man 2. I don't think it's great, but I don't hate it in the same way that I don't hate this movie. And I think it's good. I think it's paced exceptionally. For the most part, like it puts its foot on the gas and it just goes. And I think that we've talked about how it does that to a fault, but it still is able to manage that, especially with all the reshoots. And I love how this started off as a spoiler discussion. It's just turning into part 2 of our review, but it's still valid points to bring up just with deeper story things.
I think the issue too with, like you said, the confidence with Marvel, I think it's a screenwriting. I think they're too bogged down in the details versus they used to, pull references and world building in a way like we're not, it doesn't matter if you did your homework or not, but the dialogue is just at this point so on the nose that it's kind of insulting to even just a general audience,
Yeah.
When you have him going like, I want you to help me rebuild the Avengers. And he goes, President Ross, when you passed the Sokovia Accords, you tore the Avengers apart.
Yeah.
I think that's, like you could have just had a line that's like, oh, you want like another shot to break it apart. Like I don't know what the line is there, but
yeah. Or even if you're going to have that,
Accords have been in everything. They've always talked about it.
Even if you're going to have that line of like, you pass the Sokovia Accords, we know from the She-Hulk show that they've been repealed. And that was an opportunity for Ross as a character to be like, yes, and I was also the first person to sign them being repealed because I knew I made a mistake.
I also ran on a platform to repeal them.
Yes,
owning
yeah,
my
like
which
you
then pays off at the end when he goes to jail and he says it's something to see you own your mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I don't need to know that Betty Ross is Bruce Banner's ex-girlfriend for this movie,
especially from the news reporter. That's what got me.
But Hulk's not even in the movie.
Yeah.
All I need to know for this movie is that it's his daughter.
That's
it really
his daughter.
Has no relation to the Hulk, and which is also the greater issue with this movie. If you don't have the rights to make a fucking Hulk sequel, don't put it into another movie. Just don't make it.
No. See, I'm fine with all that. I think the line I think the line that you needed, or not needed, but the line that was fine was when Harrison Ford says, "My daughter never forgave me for sending the army after Banner."
Yeah.
That's all you needed, right? Like in terms of referencing Hulk, if you wanted to reference Hulk.
And with that dialogue, we know how she ties to Bruce Banner, and
Yeah.
we know why they're at ends with each other, specifically
Yeah.
him and Hulk. Yeah.
And here's another interesting thing. It kind of goes off to what you were saying. What these movies used to do is they used to give you information that maybe you didn't know what it was, but it would intrigue you enough to be like, I'm going to go home and I'm going to Google who that character was or what they were referencing or what they were talking about. And then you would then learn more about this universe and then become more invested. And it was like a natural growth. Like at the end of Infinity War, when you get the Captain Marvel logo, there were people in my theater going, "What was that?" And then people excitedly telling them, like, "Oh, that's Captain Marvel." And then they're like, "Who's Captain Marvel?" And you literally have that conversation right there. Whereas if that scene was made today, you would see the logo, and before Nick Fury faded, he would have said, "Ah, yes, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, please come to save us." And then it would have been a different situation. It wouldn't have been as deep story-wise, and you wouldn't have had that urge to go learn more about this story. But yeah. By the way, I apologize to everyone for the lack of structure in this. We're just kind of airing grievances while at the same time talking spoilers about a movie that, again, I promise I didn't hate this movie. I know each criticism I'm giving sounds like I think this movie's a piece of shit. I don't. But yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not bad. It's frustrating as a fan of the Marvel because there's just so many little things that you're like, man, if they just did this or tweak this dialogue, like it was, something good. And I think I hope that, moving forward, we get a lot more because I think what makes these characters interesting, this world interesting, is the world building, is the character driven stories. WandaVision and Loki are two of the best things that they've produced in a long time, and those are very central focused character stories compared to some of the other shows. Moon Knight was this grand adventure, but I really don't know anything about Mark Spector or one of the other five.
I disagree. I think they did a really good job with Mark Spector's character on that show. It wasn't long enough, and they could have gotten more.
But like it was so bogged down in so much other story elements and mythical elements, and I think WandaVision and Loki were able to streamline that in a more effective manner.
I agree with you that WandaVision and Loki did a better job, but I know more about Mark Spector than I know about Sam Wilson.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I would agree with that.
That's, and it's not Anthony Mackie's fault. Like, he's doing everything he can. I also feel like if I were to see
he's reading the pages that they're giving him.
If I see a sequel to this movie, I don't want it to be connected to any upcoming story. I want it to be like just a Anthony Mackie Captain America movie, whether it's like, because did they mention in Winter Soldier that all of his old soldier friends died, or he saved them all? Right?
I don't remember.
Whatever the situation is, maybe someone from his old troop is in trouble and he's got to help him, and it becomes personal because he's going against the government. Like, give me that. Like, I want to see that. But
honestly, I would not be shocked if they just rolled up Armor Wars into a Captain America sequel and made it a two-hander with Bucky.
That would be sick. I would love that.
Have him go up against Ultron. Have him go up against whoever's going to be in. No, Ultron is in Vision.
Yeah.
Whatever be it. I don't know what that Armor Wars story looks like. But Captain America Armor Wars sounds cool.
Captain America versus Justin Hammer. I'm in for that.
Put Sam Rockwell in your movie. I'm there. But I mean, or double down. Just go full Captain America Serpent Society.
Or he could be the thing that goes against the 10 Rings, and that's how you get Shang-Chi back. Because that's another post-credit scene we haven't gotten followed up on. The 10 Rings will return.
Shang-Chi's sequel, though.
Exactly.
Listen, I love War Machine. I love Armor Wars. I'd be fine with them roping that into a Captain America movie, which goes against my criticism of, if you can't do a Hulk movie, don't do it in this. But no, but I think Captain America as a two-hander is always a good idea. You have him and Bucky. You have him and Falcon. I think that's always been sort of a stronger element of it. So I think, especially because War Machine has such a high profile government job, if he still does after Secret Invasion. And that idea of rebuilding the Avengers, I think it makes sense to maybe have him and War Machine sort of leading that front, because I think they're going to end up being sort of those pseudo leaders on the
Yeah.
Earth side of things.
No, I agree with you. And speaking of Secret Invasion, I'm so happy this movie just ignored that bitch completely.
They're gonna everything moving forward. I would not be shocked if Ben Mendelsohn shows up again.
Oh yeah, or Kobe Smulders.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, yeah, I don't know what the hell happened there.
Yeah, that'd be great. Here's what it boils down to, and I want to see if you agree with me on this. What it feels like is we agree that this is probably not the movie that this movie should have been, but given that this is what it wasn't bad and could have been a lot worse.
Yes.
That's kind of where I boil down with it too. It's like, this is not what they should have done with this movie, but it's not bad. I didn't hate it. It's kind of where I'm at.
There are significantly better movies that could have been made. I think that there are also significantly worse movies that they could have done.
Oh, significantly worse. And because this movie also kind of had the same problem that the Marvels had. Again, another movie I didn't hate, of that the expositional dialogue within the reshoots was like very, very noticeable and like a problem. Like, it's like clearly there was something else here. Like, it was more noticeable in the Marvels, but it's like clearly something else was going on here. And then they did this, but the only thing that this does, because the last projects affected by like the Chapek thing were this and Daredevil. Now, they spent a lot of money reshooting Captain America. They spent a lot of money reshooting Daredevil. I'm just hoping Daredevil's not too affected by what happened. That's all. But I also think that Thunderbolts, that had a lot of problems pre-cameras rolling. But when cameras rolled, I could be misinformed on this. I've heard that they didn't do any reshoots on Thunderbolts.
That's my understanding as well. Same with Fantastic Four, I believe.
Yeah.
So I think that's positive, or that they're just in a fuck it stage. It could. We could watch
We've all
Thunderbolts.
hit the fuck it stage.
Yeah, like maybe we watched Thunderbolts and man, like they needed reshoots, and Marvel's like, we're not wasting the money. This is a bomb. Let's just fucking get it over with. Let's keep rolling.
Do you know how many times I was this close to the fuck it stage on Quiver? So many times.
That being said, I mean, I am still looking forward to Thunderbolts just because
Oh, me too.
I personally like all those characters that are involved, and I think it looks good. I like tonally what they're going for, and again, from an action standpoint, these are there's some super soldiers in it, but a lot of it's just we punch and shoot. So I am looking forward to that, and I am really looking forward to Fantastic Four because of Matt Shackman's involvement in that as well. Mm-hmm. So I hope that do they have any shows coming out this year besides Daredevil?
Ironheart and Wonder Man.
Mild intrigue.
I'm really excited for Wonder Man. The main reason I'm excited about Ironheart is because
they're bringing back Ben Kingsley as Trevor in Wonder Man.
Yes, but in Ironheart, they shot that thing forever ago. And from what I understand, they didn't do like massive reshoot. They didn't retool it or anything. They were just like, just kept delaying it because the slates were too full. So like this thing's been done. So they're just like, I guess we can release it now finally. And I hope that's a good thing and not a bad thing, but we'll see.
We'll see.
But guys, sorry for the scatterbrained spoiler review that just kind of turned into a general Marvel discussion. But hey, this is two friends talking on a Saturday. This is what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please leave in the comments your favorite things that happened in the movie, any ideas you wanted to bring up via spoiler-wise. And again, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next review.